What happens when a student decides to transfer from one college to another? Obviously, there is the headache of getting to assimilate to a new school environment, getting to meet people, etc. However, something that is often overlooked is the transfer of courses and, more specifically, the matching of course numbers between schools. Our next speaker, Assembly Member Marc Berman, led a committee to update California's master plan for higher education, and he has been playing a pivotal role in addressing this issue. In March, he introduced a bill, AB 1111, to establish a common course numbering system at California community colleges, with the intent of making it easier for students to transfer and earn their degrees. He is also the assembly member for District 24, so a quick shout out to all of our students calling in from that assembly district. Jeff Camp, the founder of Ed100, suggested that we talk about this bill as kind of a case study of California civics in action, because getting it passed involved so many players and so much attention to detail. Assemblymember Berman, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for the opportunity and the invitation to come and chat with all of you. My name is Marc Berman. I represent Northern Santa Clara County and Southern San Mateo County in the California State Assembly. But long before that, I was Esther Wojcicki's journalism teacher back at Palo Alto High School. So it was so much fun to see Waj speaking right before I joined. And I can attest to everything that she said. She had our backs as the student advisor for the Campanile for the journalism program at Pali. She 100% supported the students, and she did such an amazing job. And so I'm grateful for all that I've learned from Waj. But going back to why I'm here today, I also look forward to giving you the backstory on one of my bills, AB 1111, answering your questions and sharing the role that students can play in changing and creating laws. When I was first elected to the California State Assembly in 2016, I knew that I wanted to work on higher education issues. California's higher education system is envied and imitated throughout the country. Our public higher education system is made up of three segments: the University of California, which has 10 campuses and educates 285,000 students; the California State University system that has 23 campuses and educates about 485,000 students; and the California Community College system, which has 116 colleges and educates 2.1 million students in California. Higher education is critical to the upward economic mobility of Californians, enabling students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds to graduate into well-paying jobs and create a better future for them and their families. However, as we know all too well, not all Californians have the same chance to obtain the benefits of a higher education. I want to make sure that these benefits reach every qualifying student in California. Now, when an assembly member gets elected to the legislature, they're assigned by the Speaker of the Assembly to serve on different policy committees where they vote on legislation in a specific policy area. Unfortunately, even though I asked to be assigned to be a member of the Higher Education Committee, I was not assigned to that committee. So instead, I created my own committee, the Select Committee on the Master Plan for Higher Education. Select committees do not vote on legislation. We don't vote on bills, but we can convene informational hearings to generate more attention around certain issues. In 1960, the state developed a visionary plan for the future of higher education, which was known as the Master Plan. The plan outlined the state's goals for higher education and created the system we now have in California with local community colleges, the CSUs, and the UCs. The master plan also laid out three broad promises. It promised access to an affordable, high quality public higher education for every California high school student who qualified. However, a lot has changed over the past 61 years. California's population has grown. Today's students are way more diverse, and there are new leading businesses such as tech companies that have different workforce needs than we had 61 years ago. I wanted to ensure that the master plan reflects the current needs of students in response to issues that policymakers couldn't have ever imagined when they designed our higher education system in 1960. The Select Committee held informational hearings throughout the state and focused on the status of higher education in California, workforce needs, needs of students, the needs of faculty and staff, and how we fund higher education in California. Throughout the hearings, students over and over again brought up the issue of transfer from community college to four-year institution, and this topic has now become the focus of the Select Committee as we've moved forward. The transfer process is an important part of that commitment to two of the three promises I mentioned earlier: access and affordability. A large majority of students attend community college with the goal of transferring to complete a bachelor's degree at a four-year institution. However, data shows that students are still taking far too long to transfer. Only 19% of students who have a goal of transferring do so in 4 years, and only 28% successfully transfer within 6 years. The message from students has been loud and clear that the transfer process is too complex, confusing, and difficult to navigate. This is also an equity issue because transfer students are more often Black, Latino, and first-generation college students. While Latino students represent 51% of community college students who declare a goal of earning a degree and successfully transferring, they only represent 35% of students who do transfer within 4 years. Black students represent 7% and 5% respectively. And if a student goes directly to a four-year institution, the hope is that they graduate in 4 years. However, too many transfer students are spending at least 4 to 6 years at community college before even getting to a CSU or UC. This is unacceptable and it needs to change. This is why I authored Assembly Bill 1111 to establish a student-facing common course numbering system to make it easier for students to transfer. AB 1111 would create a common course numbering system at the California community colleges, meaning that comparable courses would have the same course number at all community colleges. Many students take courses at multiple community colleges within a district or even across different districts. Without common course numbering, it is harder for students to plan out a clear path to earning their degree. California currently has what's called a course identification numbering system, a CID system, which is a way to identify comparable common courses. However, this is a system that's only used by professors. It's courses that have the same CID number. It's a system that's only used by professors, but that the courses, even if they have the same CID number, are still numbered differently. For example, at Pasadena City College algebra for STEM majors is labeled Math 103. At Cypress College, it's Math 141C. And at Napa Valley College, it's Math 106. At Oxnard College, that same class is labeled Math R115. At Cuamaca College, it's Math 175. And at College of the Sequoias, it's Math 35. And you get the picture. It should be no surprise that differences in these course numbers can unintentionally set students back and is a barrier to timely transfer. Students may not know whether they are taking the right courses, and they might accidentally repeat some if they take classes at more than one community college, which so many students do. This means that they could be paying for a course in both time and money that will not count towards their transfer requirements. Having the same course number for all comparable courses at all community colleges would reduce unnecessary confusion, ease advising, reduce excess credit accumulation, and make it easier for community college students to transfer and earn their degree, saving students both time and money. Unlike some legislation, which can often be really complex, this bill's pretty straightforward, and I'd argue it's common sense. This is an example of where legislation can be pretty simple, but have an enormous benefit to students. Recently, common course numbering has gotten even more attention. In February, the governor's Recovery with Equity Task Force released a report which included recommendations aimed at helping higher education systems recover from the pandemic. Common course numbering was one of their recommendations. This was good news for introducing the bill, since the governor is the one who signs or vetoes legislation, and his administration has already publicly supported this idea. That being said, one big reason why many good bills die is because they cost too much or there's no funding to implement them. That's why I was also really excited that last month, the governor proposed $10 million to begin developing a common course numbering system at the community colleges, providing critical funding for AB 1111. AB 1111 has received unanimous bipartisan support, which, as many of you probably know, isn't that common these days, and will next be heard in the Senate Education Committee. And thanks to students, common course numbering is on track to become a reality. A key question that I ask when I'm deciding whether or not to introduce legislation is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? In this case, Students were the ones who alerted me to the problem, sharing their personal stories and experiences at hearings we held across the state about unnecessary confusion and obstacles they faced in obtaining a four-year degree. In fact, the Student Senate for California Community Colleges, the organization that represents community college students, is a sponsor of the bill. They reached out to elected officials requesting that they support the bill, and they recruited Gerald Richardson III, who attends Moorpark College, to be our primary witness in support. Gerald provided testimony on his personal experience to the Higher Education Committee and shared how he had unintentionally repeated a course. He was a better messenger than I could have ever been for why Common Course numbering is needed. Sharing your stories and experiences is a very powerful way to advocate for legislation. You don't have to be a policy expert to make an impact. So I want to encourage all of you to reach out to my colleagues in the Assembly and in the State Senate and make your voice heard on issues that you care about, because it truly makes a difference. Thanks again for the chance to come and chat with you all today. I look forward to Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Assembly Member Berman, for just giving us that really thoughtful and well-researched presentation about AB 1111 and your experience, and just for giving us a live demonstration of how impactful WAJ has been on just everybody, I guess, it seems. That was incredibly
Absolutely.
coincidental. Great. But we actually do have some questions queued up in the chat. So the first one is, renumbering the courses is disruptive to the teachers and administrators. How did you win the necessary support to get through the resistance to change? Would it have been possible without the $10 million?
With a lot of my bills in higher education that I've introduced this year, I've been very upfront and honest about my focus, and my focus is on the student experience. And so I understand that changing things is difficult, and that it's human nature that we get used to a certain routine and a certain way that we do things. But I think that I was able to get the success from colleagues, bipartisan success and support from colleagues, by just explaining to folks the impact this has on students, and how, we as a state need more students to be able to get their associate's degrees, and if they want to be able to transfer to a UC or CSU or private college or university and get a four-year degree, because that's what's best for the students, and that's what's best for our economy. And so, sometimes it can be hard, and I understand that these types of changes definitely have an impact on our professors, on our teachers, on our administrative staff. But I think the policy speaks for itself, and I think getting my colleagues to look at things from the student perspective has been really powerful in getting them on board. And I think the $10 million was very important. It's tough to say whether or not it was necessary. But I hate unfunded mandates. I don't like, passing laws and then not providing the financial support to implement them, or causing school staff to take money away from one thing to do something that I'm asking them to do. So yeah, I think the 10 million was very important for getting everybody on board. That money is not finalized yet. We're still kind of making our way through the budget process, but the governor has expressed support. The legislature has expressed support. So those are two pretty important signals that we'll be successful in getting that money.
Awesome. Our next question is, what advice would you give to students looking to get involved in politics?
Go intern. Find a local elected official. It can be anywhere from city council to county board of supervisor to state legislature to Congress. And look for opportunities to intern and see what it's really like working in a legislative office or working for a campaign. You get really amazing experience. And I spent 3 years working on campaigns in between undergrad and law school. While I was in college, I interned for my Congresswoman, Anna Eshoo. And then I interned for the campaign for somebody who, Mike Honda, who was running for Congress and then was a Congress member for 16 years or so. And you just get amazing experience. Campaigns don't care about age. They care about competence. And so if you're competent and you work hard, you get more responsibility and more experience. So, or if you find an issue area that you're really passionate about, go volunteer with a nonprofit, go volunteer with, the Sierra Club, or with an animal rights organization, or with a LGBTQ plus organization, or whatever you're passionate about, a farming organization, whatever, and try to kind of get that first world experience.
Definitely. Another question that I know a lot of students have is, How does a bill go from just being an idea from you or one of your staffers to, really becoming law?
Yeah. So first, you have to come up with the idea. Then we start reaching out to different organizations or individuals or stakeholders who will be impacted, and we try to get their thoughts. We try to be very upfront with people about the ideas that we're thinking about. So we want to get feedback from the different people who will be impacted, and then we draft kind of high level legislation, and we give that to lawyers. We give that to the legislature's lawyers to actually draft into bill language, which is very technical. And you want to make sure that you check, all the different sections of state law to see what you're impacting and what you're not. And then, once you get that language back from the lawyers, then you introduce it and it starts going through the legislative process. So it's pretty complicated, very technical. But it's important that we do that very methodically and intentionally so that we don't create unintended consequences from the bills that we pass.
Awesome. We know that you have AB 1111 currently in the legislature, hopefully about to pass. But if there's another bill about education that maybe you have kind of in the back of your mind brewing, what would you kind of pass as another bill in education if you could?
Yeah, I've had a bunch of ideas and things that we've been working on. Another issue that I've been very focused on is student basic needs, because so many students in higher education, in K through higher education, but I've been focused a little more on higher education. So many students suffer from homelessness, housing insecurity, food insecurity, lack of access to mental health services. So I had a bill earlier this year to establish a basic needs center on every community college campus, and have every community college campus have a basic needs coordinator. So students have a place that they can go to get help for housing support, for food insecurity, a food bank, to get plugged into other services that might be available. That bill actually looks like it's going to be funded through the budget. And so we were able to get $30 million in ongoing funding to support basic needs centers and basic needs coordinators. So I was actually able to take the bill that I had, and I'd be honest, I forget the bill number. I'm awesome at remembering what my bills do. I'm not so great at remembering the bill numbers. Too many bills. But we were able to actually get that language from that bill in the budget, and then I was able to turn that bill into a different issue and use that bill to solve a different idea. So whether it's that, I have another bill on transfer to try to improve the coordination between the community colleges, the CSU system, and the UC system, which is another big bill on the transfer process. But it's that all that comes from listening to students. All that comes from the testimonies that students provided at different hearings, figuring out what some of those common denominators are of what's stopping students from being successful and reaching their goals, and then trying to figure out how we can take those barriers down and make it easier for them.
Awesome. One of our other students, Ben, has a question. For students attending community college, a lot are confused in what courses are actually transferable. Besides contacting an academic counselor, what else could students do to make transferring to their chosen universities easier and less complicated?
So one thing that we want to do is simplify and streamline the different requirements between that. Right now, there are different general education requirements between the CSU system and the UC system. And that does create a lot of confusion. When students start their community college journey, they might not know that they want to go to a UC or a CSU. And by the time they figure it out, maybe they missed a couple of classes that they should have taken. And so they qualify for one system and not the other, when in fact, that's not where they wanted to go. So actually a bill that I'm introducing, or that I've been running this year, would require the UC and CSU systems to get together to create a general education requirement pathway, to be able to streamline that process for community college students so that it's easier and that we reduce confusion. Another thing that students should look at is there an associate's degree for transfer? What's called the ADT, because the associate degree for transfer, which was created 11 years ago by now U.S. Senator Alex Padilla when he was a state senator, streamlines the process in certain majors for students to be able to take certain courses at community college and guarantee themselves a spot at a CSU campus. And so that same bill that I referenced a minute ago also tries to make that the default. so that you don't need to track down an academic counselor. You don't need to, try to figure out what, that pathway is. If you're interested in political science and there's a political science ADT, associate degree for transfer, at the community college that you're going to, let's default put you on that track. You can opt out if you want to, and you can get the local degree instead of the ADT degree. But rather than forcing you to know about that, let's just automatically put you on that path and make it easier for you, because we know we don't have enough counselors. We need to hire more academic counselors. But in the meantime, let's make the process as easy as possible for the students to reach your academic goals.
Awesome. Assemblymember Berman, thank you so much. We know that you've been just making a huge impact both in the legislature and out. And so we wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day and for coming to speak with us today. And we wish you the best for the rest of your day and for the upcoming bill cycle and getting everything through.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Great to see everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a nice day.